All right, today I have an issue with a fan that goes into one of my sanders, and I have a job that needs to be done. I don't have time to wait for the part because it'll take probably 3 to 4 business days to get the part. So this is ABS plastic, and as you can see, the fan blades are supposed to look like this. It's a blower that blows the dust into a bag, and the impellers have broken off. And this one here broke off here. So what I'm going to end up doing is I got a piece of ABS plastic. I just got it from Home Depot. This is ABS. It's a piece that I'm just going to end up basically contouring this and gluing it onto here. But I'm going to actually put a piece onto the side so that I have something to glue it to. So let's say I'm going like that, right? Or better yet, like this. I'm going to glue a piece onto the side, and then I'm going to glue a piece onto this vein here, and that's going to be basically it's going to be double thickness when I get done with it. So I'm going to cut pieces on my bandsaw that are going to be, going along the side here. They're going to cut off here, and then they're going to be no taller than this impeller right here. So I'm going to trace it out, and then I'm going to cut the piece that will need to fill in the gap here. So by having that, it's going to be double strength. I'm not just going along the spine of this and hoping that it's going to hold on. I'm using plastic epoxy, and theoretically, I mean, if I put it on there with plastic epoxy, it's going to hold, but it's not going to hold forever because that's a fairly thin area. I mean, this is basically 1/8 of an inch thick, as you can see here. So I just got to make sure that I'm going to have something that can go against. And that's the reason I've got to put the backing piece on it. And since I'm putting a backing piece on here, I'm going to have to do it on the opposite vein as well to keep this in balance. Although this is not a huge diameter, it's not like I'm going to have a lot of weight on the outside of a huge wheel. But just since it's spinning at a certain RPM, I still want it to maintain relative balance there. So that's why I'm going to put the additional pieces, even on the pieces that don't need it, so that it balances all out. Okay, I'll be back after I cut these pieces here. Okay, so I figured I'd show the method here that I'm going to be using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just go ahead and mark the pieces that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to put a mark across there, and I'm going to have it extended out to here. It's going to actually go to right out to here. I'm just marking it with a scratch awl so you can kind of see the scratches that I put into it. So this and this, that shows how tall it's going to be, that shows how wide it's going to be. And then what I'm going to do is I'm also going to, that's the piece that supports it, then I'm going to make a piece just like it on the inside, but I'm going to have to scribe this so that I can contour the piece to fit right into that gap right there. And then any gaps that are that are going to be there are going to be filled in by the epoxy material that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to cut these out. I'm going to probably just show one, and then I'll show the piece finish once it's done. There's no need to go through it over and over and over again. And so I'll be back after I've cut these pieces. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just cut through the piece here. The bandsaw is going to make pretty quick work of this ABS plastic. I've scribed it out, as you can see the scribe marks here. This is how long it's going to be, and this is how tall it's going to be. So I'm just going to go ahead and rip it. Okay, so just like butter. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and cut it the other way now. So just like butter. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put this piece as a side piece. I'm going to cut another piece that's going to contour that other broken part, and that's what's going to actually fit on top of it. So I've got to scratch all that out the way that contour is so I can get it more or less in place. There's also a hump at the top of each one of those veins, so I'm going to have to replicate those. So you know, it's going to be a little bit of a intricate piece, but it's not going to be that big of a deal because I'm using a bandsaw to cut through everything, so it should be pretty simple. So I'll come back once that's complete. Okay, so since I've actually got this piece cut out to perfection, what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up just tracing out all the other pieces. So I'm going to cut 6 of these pieces. I've already traced this part out, as you can see. I'm going to cut out 6 pieces just like it to fit on each of these vanes. And those are going to be the front supports, and then I'm going to cut the other pieces that are going to fill in the gaps on the missing ones. And this one here, this one's broken also. The other 2 are fine, so I'll go ahead and cut them out, and then I'll have them in place already. It's easier to cut it once I've got one piece cut instead of cutting it and repairing, you know. Okay, I figured out a smarter way to do this since I have limited materials here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to trace out one of these impellers, as I've done on here, okay, and I'm going to put it on the back side of the vane, and that's the way it's actually going to be. That's the way it's going to be epoxied into place. I don't have to put any reinforcements that way. It's going to be the same thickness. You know, I mean, we're talking about 1/8" thick material here, so this is going to be fit here. I've got it traced out, the contours of this onto here, and I'm just going to epoxy it into place like that, and I'm just going to build up this area so that I don't have to worry about it coming loose. And it is on the inside edge because the impeller is spinning in this direction, so it's actually going to be pushing on it rather than pulling on it, so I don't have to worry about it pulling apart. It's just going to be pushing it together, so that's the way it's going to be done. And I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to do the final piece. So I'm going to cut out 3 of them here, and then I'm going to cut out the final piece out of this. So that's the way it's going to be done. Okay, so I cut my first piece out here. So I'm just going to contour match it to this piece here, and it looks like it's pretty good. Now there was a piece, you know, that was scraped off of here, so basically, yeah, we're good. So that's how it's going to go. It's going to match the inside of these pieces, and then I'm going to, you know, be putting these on the back side here, and that's how it's going to go. I'm going to probably cut this little bit off here that's overlapping, just so that I don't have it scraping the walls. And we're good to go. So I'm going to copy this piece 3 times. When I scratch it out onto the other pieces, I'm going to have to cut on the inside of the lines because, you know, obviously me scratching it out on the outside of the piece is going to make the other pieces bigger. So I have to make them, you know, to the size to match this, and not before I cut this or shave this off a little bit just to get it right, so it's right at the edge here. All right, so I've cleaned off the pieces that are going to be adhered to. These pieces are clean already, you know, I wiped them off anyway. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and start putting these pieces into place here. So I've laid out a couple of blobs of epoxy. Got to mix it. This stuff sets up fairly fast. It's 6 minutes, so I have to work fairly quickly here when I'm doing this. And I don't know if I've mixed enough to do all of the impellers, but if I did, I'll have to go back and mix another batch. But I'm just going to show one being done right now. Okay, and this stuff is nice and sticky, so I don't have to worry about holding it in place while it's setting up. So I'm just going to go ahead and put some on the inside here, all the way along here. Okay, and then that way it's gonna have a nice base to stick to. Right here. And then what I'm going to do after I've put it in there, I'm going to build it up on the outside here as a second coat. So I'm just going to go ahead. You can kind of see it here. Okay. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to build a coat right there so that it's kind of like has a weld seam there, so to speak. I don't know if you can see that. Okay. So that's the way these are going to all go on here, and then I'll just follow suit with the other ones, and then I'll build the weld along there, or the epoxy line along there. Okay, so I've epoxied everything into place for the initial epoxy job. Then I'm going to run, like I said, I'm going to run a bead along there just to make sure that I don't have any events happen along those lines. But you know, pretty much like new, and it's contoured, so it's going to do the job. This isn't a super high speed setup here. It spins, you know, maybe, I don't know, probably 600 RPM, if that. So basically it's going to be good enough to go. I'm going to put it back in the machine and everything will be ready to go. This stuff, it sets up in like I said, a few minutes, but it takes a while for cure time. I think cure time is like 24 hours, so I'm not going to actually run the machine until that 24 hours or whatever the entire cure time is up, just to make absolutely sure that everything's good. So that's how I fix pieces with plastic, you know, pretty basic stuff. But it was just a kind of a quick and dirty fix. I just didn't have enough time to get one of these pieces, and now I'm going to be up and running because I was able to fix it with existing stuff that I had already. So thanks for watching.